Alrighty, guys, welcome back to the Left of Str8 Show Interviews, the premier podcast that shares the stories of our amazing LGBTQ community and, of course, fantastic straight allies, all from entertainment, foodies, books, music, and advocacy. I'm your host, as always, Scott Fullerton, and let's start talking. Welcome back, everyone. I have another great interview for you today. I love to dive deep into the creative mind shaping the world of film and entertainment, as you know. And today I have a very special guest in studio with me. Corey Sherman's here. Corey's a talented writer, director, and actor whose newest feature film debut, Big Boys, is making waves throughout the industry. Big Boys has a heartfelt coming-of-age story that beautifully captures the nuances of growing up and coming out. Corey's known for his unique storytelling and compelling character development in both live action and animation, and has brought his personal experiences to the screen in a way that resonates with audiences everywhere. Join us as we explore Corey's journey from his early beginnings to his current success in the industry. But first, take a look.
There he is.
Jamie, this is my boyfriend, Dan.
It's good to meet you, bud.
Good to meet you.
Allie's bringing her boyfriend?
I thought this was supposed to be a cousins-only camping trip.
That's what Mom said, I don't know.
They're just gonna be having sex the whole time.
They're not gonna have sex the whole time.
Maybe not the whole time, but it'll be a marathon.
You need some help?
No.
Have you actually ever set up a tent before? Or?
Can't be that hard.
Oh.
Oh, shh. What do you think about Dan? I feel like he doesn't like me for some reason.
Are you gay?
Will, I'm not gay.
You still haven't had your first hookup, right?
Oh, you have an eyelash. Ow! Oh, sorry, Erica. The alcohol is like, I'm a little drunk.
I have never seen him like this.
I didn't know you were in here.
You want to come in?
I drew this picture.
Yeah, that's something there, man. You're really talented. You got a girlfriend?
Not at this exact moment.
Is there a girl you like?
Yeah, kind of.
Does she know you like her?
Oh, probably not, no.
Why do you feel like you need to impress Dan so much?
Just kind of want him to like me.
You gotta tell her, man. You have no idea what you could be missing out on.
Alrighty, we are back. That was the trailer for Big Boys, my very special guest, Corey Sherman's new debut film. It's been hitting the circuit for about a year now. But Corey, welcome to Left of Str8 Show, my friend. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me, Scott. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you, my friend. I mean, it's been getting buzz ever since it first premiered back, I think, March of last year. And now we're getting ready to really do some wide openings for it. So congratulations on all the success it's garnered.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you saying that.
Well, I'm excited to talk to you all about that and learn a little bit more about you for my listeners. I always like to start with two questions for first-timers on the show. I like to find out, where did you grow up, and tell me, what kind of a kid were you growing up?
Yeah, I grew up mainly in a neighborhood called Riverdale, which is in New York City. It's in the North Bronx. And I think the kind of kid, I mean, I was really like a film kid. I had been making videos since I was like 8. My dad got me a camcorder for Hanukkah one year, and I just got really into it and was making lots and lots of videos with my brother and my babysitter at the time. And then I would start making them with my friends. I remember getting really into YouTube, really when it came out in like 2006, and just starting to post videos then. And yeah, and I was just, I think, like a very, in a lot of ways, very like passionate kid, because I was lucky enough to find what I was into really early on and became pretty obsessed with it. I liked performing a lot. I think I was also pretty like type A, and still am. Like, I was very much like a goody two shoes, was a rule follower for most of my childhood. And yeah, I think wanted to do right by my parents a lot of the time. I was not rebellious really at all. I was trying to keep things pretty copacetic, I would say. Yeah, and in some ways, I'm a lot like Jamie, the main character in Big Boys. I feel like you can get a pretty good idea of the kind of kid I was by watching the movie.
Oh, nice. I love that. And talk about you're out and proud and everything. Talk about your journey. When did you first come out to yourself, and when did you feel you first kind of started finding your LGBTQ tribe?
Yeah, I really started to come out to myself in around middle school. That's when it sort of became undeniable to me. And I remember just having like a couple really important breakthrough moments where I realized that it was okay with me that I was gay, and that there was a lot to look forward to, and that I could live just as good of a life as if I had been straight. And it was like really important for me to like reckon with that idea, because up until then it had been filled with so much dread and fear and denial. But like once I was able to really wrap my head around it and feel joyful about it and stop like resisting it, it was like such a relief. And then I started to tell people, my friends in high school, and then eventually my parents and the rest of my family. And, you know, it was like a really big deal moving out to LA to go to college, because it was really like I was just off to the races in terms of like going to bars and meeting guys and all of that stuff, which I hadn't even dipped my toe into in high school. But it was like a really like a kid in a candy store kind of experience to go to these places like the Eagle and Fault Line here in LA, which I had only dreamt of, you know, for years before. And then actually to be able to step inside was really exciting and at times overwhelming. And I feel very lucky. I still sometimes feel it's a bit surreal when I step into a place like that, because of, I don't know, how special that kind of place is, and how important it was to me even before I got to go to a place like that.
Right. That's so well said. I love that. And talk about your journey. What brought you to LA? What made you choose school there? And how was that experience?
Yeah, I mean, I went to film school out here at USC, and, you know, I just knew it was a good film school, that I would, you know, be working with a lot of other, like, just very talented filmmakers and students. And it just, you know, I'm so glad I decided to come out here, because I met so many wonderful people who I've continued to work with to this day, and who are also friends of mine. And a lot of people outside of film school, once we graduate, they just stay in LA because it just makes sense career-wise. And so I've been really lucky to stay friends with a lot of those people now for 12 years, because it's, you know, it's almost exactly 12 years ago that we moved out here. And so there's like a real sense of history there. And I think just film school was a great experience in terms of just like practicing making films, and also meeting all kinds of kids, and also getting to know LA better. I think I got really lucky because LA, I think, is a tough city to move to cold if you're not affiliated with a specific job or educational institution. So having USC as like a sort of soft landing into LA was really nice. And I feel very fortunate to have had that, because it just introduced the city in a very manageable way.
Right. That makes so much sense. Yeah, a lot of people, as I told you off air, I'm from LA. Same thing. Such great film schools there and different things. And when you're in the industry, you really do kind of create those bonds, and it's nice. When I started doing the show back in 2015, it's when it was tough to get a job in Hollywood, as it is these days too. And so that's when the web series started becoming a big thing, and everyone would find their friends from school and create these really fun web series. It was really some creative filmmaking. So totally. I love that kind of aspect to it.
Totally. Yeah. The web series heyday. I remember it well. I mean, it was very much still going on when I was in film school too. That was like, so the bread and butter. Everybody was making a web series. I made a few web series.
If I'm not getting hired, I'm going to make my own, and we're going to have some fun with it. So there you go.
Yeah. I wonder sometimes if that, like, I'd be interested to talk to film students now to see if that's as big of a format for them, because it was such a go-to for us. And I just wonder now how it's done.
Well, and I've talked to a lot of friends too with everything, all the discussions we have now about AI and all these other things. Is it going to come back to that when people feel like they're kind of using different things? Is it going to come back to some guerrilla filmmaking again? Do you talk about your journey? I mean, you've gone from editing to producing and doing all these different things, writing different shows. How has your evolution been to get to where you were with writer and director on Big Boys?
Yeah, so like I said, I'd just been writing and directing and editing my own shorts since I was pretty young. And that's what I did all throughout college. And then I got a couple different editing jobs that were just really important learning experiences for me. I love editing. It's really important to me. And I was a co-editor on this movie. And I think I would want to have a hand in the editing of every movie I make, just because there's just something about I don't know, just like working with performances in that way and determining rhythm and sense of humor and punchlines and all of that. It's just such a fun, engaging, and challenging part of the whole filmmaking process. And so I learned a lot through a couple different jobs. And then I also got to write and direct on this animated series called 12 Ounce Mouse on Adult Swim. And that is like a really absurd, super out there show that I was a really big fan of. And then I got to work with Matt Malero, the creator of the show. He brought me on to work on it and also like voice a character. And that was just another amazing experience in terms of doing something that was just so out there and experimental. And it was so fun to just like have no boundaries and just be able to do like just the craziest stuff in animation. And yeah. And then, you know, a few friends of mine started to get features off the ground, including a good friend of mine, Matt McClung. And it was just starting to feel like, oh, this is like a real possibility, this thing that I've always fantasized about. And it was inspiring and encouraging to see my friends starting to do it. And I was like, well, you know, it's time to really start thinking more seriously about this. And, you know, I definitely played around with like a couple different ideas, but nothing really clicked until I had the idea for Big Boys. And then when I had that idea, it was very clear to me of like, I just know this story so well. And it's tapping into such a deep well of feeling inside me that goes back to a very young age. So I feel like there's just all these details that I have gathered over this time that I'm just so ready to put into something. And it was very clear to me also like just what I wanted to get across with the movie, like very much from the get-go, and what I wanted the audience to take away from it, and what specific kinds of details and experiences I wanted people to be able to relate to. So that was all just such a good North Star for this. And so it all just like came out pretty quickly because in some ways it was like very ready to go. It just needed the right sort of idea or packaging or like frame.
Right. No, and we'll talk a little bit about, I wanted to stop for 2 seconds because I think you mentioned it kind of in passing there. When you're talking about your editing, I saw that last week at Ed's. I thought it was a different show than it ended up being.
Yeah.
But, I mean, working with some greats with Lawrence and Meg Kasdan, I mean, that's got to be a film school in and of itself right there.
Exactly. Yeah. That was just such a massive job for me, just because I got to work with Larry and Meg in the edit bay for like 5 months, working on this documentary about a diner in Los Angeles called Ed's Coffee Shop that unfortunately closed, but they filmed it during their last week in business. And it was just exactly my favorite kind of doc, which is like super character based, very grounded sort of slice of life documentary. And Larry is just such a genius and such like a humanist. And he just has such a great sense of storytelling and and character. It was just such a pleasure to work with him and also just get to talk to him about his whole career in the film industry and get his advice and stuff. It really meant a lot to me.
I love hearing that. Listeners, if you don't know who Lawrence Kasdan is, just pull up a little IMDb and you're going to be shocked and amazed because he's done about I mean, for me, I consider myself a bear of a certain age, so his early work and Body Heat and everything, amazing. But then his writing, anyone that's listening to this is going to know some of his writing.
Totally.
Looking forward to that. So you talk about this story kind of coming to you. I think I read where you were actually on a camping trip with your family, and this kind of where the idea kind of germinated. How quickly were you able to put it? And tell me about what that camping trip, kind of what feelings that brought this all to the surface.
Yeah, I was on a camping trip with my brother and my dad, and I think it was just like it was when I was there, I could just so imagine being like a closeted gay kid on a camping trip, stuck like just surrounded by families and other people your age and feeling just like really trapped inside yourself. But also, you know, there's something very sort of like I don't know, exposed about camping, because it's like you're looking around at all these other campsites and everybody is just sort of like living their lives in front of each other. And I could imagine being at that early stage where you're starting to notice other people you're attracted to and not really knowing what to do with those feelings, but having them be really powerful and overwhelming. And so I thought that that would be a cool setting for this kind of story. And it really just, I think part of what was exciting to me about it was telling the story of a young person like a Jamie who's like 14, who has a crush on an older person, somebody that is completely inaccessible to them, not only because they're straight, but because they're like, 14 years their senior, and it's like that feeling of like the desire being so strong and really informative, because it's like, all right, I really like this guy. I'm really interested in him. I can't stop looking at him. Like, I must reckon with what that means. And so it can teach you a lot about yourself, but it's also can be really frustrating because there's a feeling of like, well, I'll never get this guy. I'll never actually be able to consummate this. And so there was something about being stuck in that feeling that was really interesting to me, and I could just relate to really well, and was exciting to me because it's both funny and also sort of heartbreaking and difficult. And it just felt like a contained story. Camping trips are short. It's like a couple nights. I really like movies that take place over just a couple days. And it also, from a production standpoint, felt practical to shoot at a campsite. It's nothing insane. It's like we can at least afford a campsite.
There you go. Smart filmmaking. I love it. Very, very good. Well, let's talk about the casting. I mean, Isaac did such an amazing job, and now work with Nicole Kidman, by the way, and fantastic job there. Talk about, was that the image you had in mind when you were casting, when you were writing this? For those that, you just saw the trailer here, so we got the character Jamie is a little bit of a bigger guy and everything, but he owns every bit of it. The joy of him dancing around the campsite made my little gay heart flutter about 1,000,000 times.
Great.
But was that always in your mind, the vision you saw of this character?
Yeah, completely. That was always going to be the story. I guess purely from like a physical standpoint, the movie is called Big Boys for a reason. Like, I wanted it to be about bigger guy, like this main character who's like a bigger kid, because that's who I was. And it was something that, I felt shame about as a kid. And I wanted to tell the story of somebody like that, meeting an older, bigger guy who they're attracted to, but also like a guy who is like really confident in his body and is not ashamed of being big, and show how that can sort of rub off on a younger person, and how the younger person can take more confidence in themselves when they have a role model like that. But then it just, in terms of Isaac's performance, it's like so much better than I ever could have imagined, because I was able to get this character only so far with my own writing and my own experiences and talking to other people. But then Isaac just brought this level of, just like such deeply felt emotion and experience to it. He's so transparent in the role. Like, you can so like read his mind, but you can also feel the very sophisticated ways that Isaac played him, I think also shows in the ways in which that person tries to cover themselves up and hide behind things and be performative to stand out in, like, so that they can feel special and noticed by anybody at all. Like, and he conveys that like anxiety and also the self-consciousness, but also like the joyfulness and the humor of that person. It's such like a layered performance. And I was so blown away every time we were shooting a scene at just like how committed he was to portraying this person with as much like both like compassion and also honesty at the same time. He was never trying to sugarcoat the character or make him look like cute or appealing to the audience. It was just like, how honest can I be to how this person would really be behaving and feeling in this moment? And so, yeah, I feel very, very lucky that we found Isaac for this role.
Well, it really brought the words on the page to life. And so often, I consider myself a bear from the neck up and chub from the neck down. And so I lived in both those communities for quite a bit, still do. And it just, the authenticity of it and just kind of the words are so, usually what are the chubby guys or the villains or the comic relief or something like this. And this story is centered around feelings that he portrayed so well, but it was written so well for him to kind of act out. So I got to commend you on just bringing the realisticness to it. And then you have characters like Taj and David who bring so much to those roles. I mean, there's just some good casting there, my friend. Talk about that, what that process was like.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think I really felt like I didn't want to settle for any character in this because it's a small movie and it's pretty like ensemble oriented. It's people hanging out at a campsite. So it's like, I felt like the performances had to be as good as they could possibly be in order to really hold the audience's attention. And also just because what's happening in so much of the movie is like subtextual. So, because I was trying to hold on to this thing of like the way that people behave and talk in this movie is hopefully as close to how they do in real life, where it's like you say one thing, but you really mean another. I didn't want people to speak their minds very much at all, like in a super direct way. And so you need like really amazing actors who can convey the subtext, you know, just by reading their faces, you know, what's really going on in their minds, even if they might be saying something else. And so it was just such a joy casting this movie. And, you know, some of these people like Taj, who plays Will, Jamie's older brother, we had been a big fan of from shows like Pen 15, which he was just amazing in. And then getting to work with him on this, to have him play like a completely different character who he also approached with like a ton of compassion and as much understanding as possible, even though Will can be like a lot more like aggressive and off-putting sometimes. And then David and Dora, who played Ali and Dan, the older couple on this trip with them, that was just like another great experience of just like, you know, we watched a lot of tapes. And then when we saw both of them, it was just immediately so clear that those were the characters for the job. And I think they just did such a good job at playing that sort of like, I don't know, like both like a very sort of like cool older couple type that I know that I would have been so obsessed with as a kid and loved hanging out with and loved getting the attention from. And they just brought like a lot of nuance and humor to their own characters. And I think that this was just such a great experience in feeling like the power of what an actor can bring to a role. There's so much just like life and history and stuff that might not come up directly in the story, but you can just feel in the performances. And I feel like everybody in this movie really like made those characters their own.
Agree 1,000%. Like I said, the nuance, I mean, you can feel it that Jamie's character really looked up to his cousin. And so he already had this kind of admiration for this older person. And then, and he's kind of not looking forward to having someone else join the parade. And then he has that admiration turn where it kind of flicks this a light bulb. But just the very subtle, I just don't want to give too much away, but it's just so good. The entire thing is just written and portrayed so well by these actors. So again, good on you, man.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that.
Talk about the set. I mean, I love the San Bernardino Mountains. When I was a kid growing up in Southern California, we'd go up to Big Bear and go to the YMCA camps every summer. And
oh, wow. Beautiful
areas up there and kind of lots of fun. Talk about filming any hazards, because it can be a little wacky up there sometimes. Or how was the overall time on the set? Usually those things are filmed relatively quickly too.
Yeah, there definitely were some wacky moments. I mean, we got pretty lucky just in terms of weather, but there were some moments where we got caught in some like thunderstorms. We got hit with some like really insane, massive bugs. And everybody was really such a trooper about it. I mean, the whole thing really did have a nice sort of like summer camp atmosphere, because we were all staying together on the mountains for a couple weeks in like basically like a cluster of houses. And we got to hang out with each other a lot, you know, offset, because everybody would come home. Nice. They would be sleeping in the barracks together. And I think people had fun, and I was glad to see them having fun, because in a lot of ways it was a big ask. You know, people are spending a few weeks away from home, shooting a movie outside every day, like in the summer heat. And so I think that it was like it was challenging at times, but also very rewarding, and also it just helped us to bond as a crew, because it just added that extra level of challenge that, you know, I think we really did overcome together.
Exactly. Talk about how was it? We talked about writing and directing before for Adult Swim. How was it with live action? All of a sudden you're balancing the role of writer, director, and you're an actor yourself. So how was that kind of relating with real actors and not animation on the screen. Talk about the
Yeah.
dynamics of being able to put all three of those aspects of your career into the movie. That had to be kind of exciting and maybe a little scary.
Yeah. I mean, I had a lot of experience already working with actors and making live action short films and sketches and that kind of thing. But I think honestly, the main takeaway I had from my animation experience that I was able to apply to Big Boys was like, with animation, there's an opportunity because you can always go back and redraw or reanimate things to make them better. There's an opportunity to really punch up the writing as much as you possibly can and basically be like, you know what, this joke isn't working and we're still in the sort of animatic stage. Like, let's just rewrite this and let's just make it better. And that was such a valuable lesson with working on Big Boys, because while I was writing it, there would be things that would come up where I'm like, you know what, this is okay. This is pretty good. I can settle for this. But I decided, because I had such a good experience, like pushing myself working on 12 Ounce Mouse, this animated show, I really just tried to do it here too and be like, no, I want to be excited about every single scene. Like, I really want to basically rework everything so it doesn't feel like I'm on autopilot or it's just something that I've seen before that I'm regurgitating into this moment in the script. It's like, I wanted everything to feel as fresh as possible. And then, you know, I tried to bring that to the set as well and be really within the time frame that we had, like always pushing for something that felt more alive or more fresh than what was necessarily on the page. And I think it really helped to be working with great actors who were also great improvisers. And we figured out a lot of stuff during our rehearsal week and then on set as well. Whereas like if something just felt stale, like we don't have to settle for it. Like we might as well try to throw something new out there. And oftentimes I think it really, really paid off. So it was, and that's just something that excites me about filmmaking, is just like that constant like pushing for like how close to the thing that I'm most excited about can I get?
Right. And I really felt that too. I mean, I watch lots of films. I'm part of a film reviewers, LGBT film reviewer association. And I think the thing I love seeing about younger film directors or newer film directors too, is they have that spontaneity and it's not always derivative of other people, right? So I'm sure you have influences and people that you look up to, but it's very much, this is very much your film. I can see that. I can see by the fresh take of it. And I really love that you put this and yourself into this film. So great job on that as well.
Thank you. I mean, that means a lot. I mean, I think it's something I'm still certainly figuring out. It's my first movie. But just, you know, it was a really fun experience to combine movies and styles that I've been obsessed with for a long time and then really get a chance to try to put them together and hopefully combine them into something that does feel new and fresh.
Is it difficult or easier to do your first film as LGBTQ film? Do you feel, how do you keep yourself from, are these themes you want to keep approaching? Are you looking to do other do you ever feel that you're going to get pigeonholed in anything after your first one is so successful for this type of a film?
I definitely do want to keep making movies that have gay characters and like explore the experience of being queer and all of that. Definitely. I mean, I think there's other aspects to it that I would want to explore, because this is such a specific point in a queer person's life where it's really about them sort of starting to emerge from feeling shame about who they are and starting to feel a little bit more excitement and pride in who they are. And that's such a specific turning point that I remember really vividly. But there's all this other stuff, you know, I'm 30, but I've lived half my life since I was Jamie's age. And so there's other stuff that I'm excited about exploring. And yeah, I think again, it was like, it was helpful having that experience for like a first feature film because of how personal it was to me and how vivid my memories of that time are. And also how that experience is often so private. I mean, it's literally private because you're closeted and you're not talking to people about what's going on. So it was like all this buildup of feeling and detail that had no outlet. So it was sort of like primed, like I said, to go once I found the story that I wanted to tell it in. And so it was like a very exciting experience to have the flip of like this thing that I lived with by myself for so long. I'm so excited to put it out in the most exposed public way possible.
Well, and like I said, it's such original storytelling. I mean, we've all seen the coming out story 1,000 different ways, and this is something that's very original as far as we feel these feelings, the raw feelings that all of us felt when we were younger, and as we start to experience these things, which is great. I mean, there's some great films out there talking about the LGBTQ experience, but not as many kind of with the nuance that you've portrayed with it. So I think that's a really strong testament to you and why you're doing so well and getting such rave reviews on it. Do you have any projects that you're working on? Do you find writing easy for you? Do you find writing difficult? Talk about the writing aspect of your career.
Yeah. There are new projects that I'm working on, new films. And yeah, writing is really fun and really challenging. I mean, it's tough just being alone in the room, and trying to push something up the hill, and there's good days and there's bad days. And I think the main thing that I'm really just trying to get better at is not getting too carried away with one or the other, like feeling like I had a good day, so this whole movie's figured out. It's perfect. It's good to go. Versus a bad day where it's like, oh, this thing is terrible. I need to abandon this completely. And more just like, enjoying the ride of like knowing that there's going to be ups and downs. And that no one feeling you have about the script in one day is permanent. And just like working on a variety of different projects. And, there's different kinds of movies I want to make. There's lots of different kind of movies that I love. And so it's exciting to think about other genres and tones to work in. And so really I'm just having a lot of fun, just like exploring and keeping my options open right now.
Well, I'm excited to see all you have coming ahead of you, my friend. Like I said, you just hit it out of the park with this one. Any particular film festival, anything you got to go to that really struck a chord you have a great memory of during this process?
Yeah, I mean, our premiere at BFI Flair was really, really fun. I mean, that was the first time we got to watch the movie with an audience. And it was just so cool because like the BFI theater is so beautiful, and we got to watch it with like a British audience, which was cool to me. And yeah, it was very surreal. And the screening, like the hometown screening here at Outfest, was also just so fun because there were just so many people who worked on the movie who were in the theater, and it just felt like just such a great like coming together and celebration of what we had done together. And I was really lucky to get to go to a lot of places like Frameline, Provincetown, Wicked Queer in Boston, and watch it with audiences and feel people just reacting in a way where I could tell that they were identifying with Jamie, and that felt really good. Like they were laughing with him, they were cringing for him, they were rooting for him. It was like all these feelings where I was like, oh, this is like such a nice communal experience of, and it felt a little like cathartic of just like attaching to this character. And like I said, a lot of this movie is about stuff that takes place in such a internal, private place. And so then to be in a room full of people that are seemingly recognizing that place was really validating and encouraging. And so, yeah, I was really lucky to be able to watch it with audiences.
I bet. Well, congratulations on all the success, my friend. I'm so excited we had a chance to talk to you, and I'm really looking forward to this. We had a great chat with Corey on our live Bears chat. We'll go into more of bear culture later on. So if you missed that, I will play the replay of that. But Corey, let everyone know where they can find the film right now and what the plans are for wide release and where they can find you, my friend.
Yeah, totally. So the movie's coming to theaters. So May 31st in Los Angeles, you'll be able to see it starting May 31st in Los Angeles at the Lumiere Music Hall in Beverly Hills. And then it'll start playing in New York City on June 7th at the Village East. And then there's going to be a couple other cities it plays in that are still to be determined. And then it'll become available for rental and purchase online on like Apple, Amazon, Google, YouTube on June 11th. And then like a few months after that, it'll become available on a streaming service, which is also to be determined. Yeah. And you can find out more about the movie at bigboysfilm.com and more about me on Instagram at Corey Sherm, Corshherm. And I think that's it. Yeah.
There you go. Well, Corey Sherman, it's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you. I can't wait to keep following your career. Thanks so much for being on the Left of Str8 show, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really, really fun talking to you.
All right, well, stay on the line for me, guys. Like I said, we did have a live chat earlier this week with my buddy Johnny on Bears of a Certain Age. So be sure to look for that. And next Tuesday, we're going to have Corey back for 5 Questions With. We appreciate you tuning in every time here on the Left of Str8 show. We'll see you next time. Do all the fun stuff, the 5 stars, all the certifications and the little knobs. So we appreciate that. We'll see you next time, everyone. Have a great day. Bye.
Thanks for listening to The Left of Str8 Show. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast distributor, and please give us a 5-star rating so more listeners can find us. You can follow us on social media, and be sure to check out our website for contests and other news and information. See you next week.